Monday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for joining us. Browns let one slip away in the fourth quarter on the West Coast and now have a 2-game losing streak as they fell to the Rams out in Los Angeles. Kevin Stefanski met with the media today, would not name a starting quarterback for Sunday's game at home against Jacksonville. DTR is still in the concussion protocol. But Kevin Stefanski did admit Joe Flacco's ability to throw the deep ball was evident.
I think for us, Tony, you're always trying to play to the strengths of your guys. And as you know, Joe can push the ball down the field. That doesn't mean that every time you're trying to just do that. Defensively, you know, teams are going to have to play him honest and have had to play him honest his whole career in that regard. But no, I don't think there's any desire to have to sling it around all day just because of Joe's arm talent. I think we had 9 guys with receptions, Mary Kay, and I think if we're doing our job, that should be what it is because the ball always goes where the ball goes based on the defense. So I thought Joe got through progressions. Like you mentioned, Elijah oftentimes was first in progression and made some nice plays and then got through it and really found a bunch of guys in the pass game.
With that, let's welcome in Scott Petrak from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram as well as BrownZone.com. Scott, you know, the first drive was really impressive, and I think overall Flacco was probably the high end of what I thought he would be. I mean, obviously they took away his first read later in the thing, and that obviously is going to create some problems just because he hasn't been here long enough to get deep into the playbook.
Yeah. You know, I thought he played as well as could be expected. You know, you got to take that interception into account, right? It's a big one, kind of a backbreaker at a crucial moment in the game. And you talk about taking away his first read, they did. He was going to go either intermediate to Cedric Tillman or short to Jerome Ford and forced it to Elijah Moore. But other than that, I thought he played really well. You know, you mentioned the starting with the touchdown, then they come back and get one in the fourth quarter. Those 2 touchdown passes, wasn't sacked until right at the end when they were, you know, trying to play catch up down 2 scores. Guy thought he threw the ball away when he needed to until the interception. So, you know, like you figured, I mean, at 38 and having, you know, almost 200 starts, like I figured the operation would be smooth and he would look like in control because he's done it so many times. What I wasn't sure about is can he still throw it on time and on target at that speed of game, right? NFL speed, can he still do it? And he certainly did.
Yeah, without question. So Joe Flacco was asked post-game about his performance, and if that performance convinced him that he still belongs in the NFL.
The one thing I would think about is the decision that I made at the end of the game, and that was it.
Joe,
it does matter.
Joe, do you leave here feeling more encouraged and buoyed about how you were able to go out there and did what you did with being on the practice squad 2 weeks ago, or mad at yourself or upset at yourself for making that last decision?
Yeah, just upset at myself. Listen, I know I can play, so that's not. I think every time you go take the field, you're obviously proving to yourself and proving to other people that you can play the game. But deep down, I know I can play the game, so that's not my thought process at this point. My thought process is just disappointed in myself and you know, I've played in. These are the games that I honestly love to be in. They come down to the fourth quarter, and they're not pretty, and they're going to be tight. I think I excel in the games that are played tight and need to have good decisions be made. So to not come through in that kind of situation, it definitely stings a little bit.
And Scott, you know, you could tell just by his demeanor, you know, he was disappointed in it. You know, at that point in time, he's trying to make a play. That's in the fourth quarter, you get that.
Yeah, you do. You just don't need it right there, right? You're down 1. You got the ball back. Your defense gets you a stop after the missed extra point by Dustin Hopkins. And you get it back. And, you know, it's not like Stefanski said, let's go for the home run. That's not what it was. They call a lot of play action passes. You get guys short, intermediate, long. And Flacco was just too late trying to get to the deep guy. And that's what he said after the game. And, you know, gave time for the safety, John Johnson III, to get over. It wasn't the best pass. I thought it floated a little bit. Flacco said it came out of his hand okay, but obviously didn't get deep enough. It didn't get past the safety to Elijah Moore. But I do think it's interesting, him talking about deep down he knows he can play. And, I guess you have to expect that for a guy that started as many games, won a Super Bowl, Super Bowl MVP. You have to have that attitude. But to me, it means, he's out there. He knows how his legs feel. He knows how his arm feels. And he's done enough times to go, okay, well, I can still move enough. I still got enough quick twitch. I can still throw it well. Everybody can see that. So why can't I be the guy? Now, he hasn't been a full-time starter in years. And, he probably disagrees with those decisions and still thought he could be that guy. But for short term, you need to try to win a couple games to get to the playoffs. I'm not sure the Browns can do any better.
Yeah, I would agree, and that leads us into this. So questions for each team, Week 13, this from ESPN.com. Is Joe Flacco the answer now at quarterback? It's unclear if the Browns will turn back to DTR role with Flacco from here on out. If it's the latter and Flacco can play this well going forward, the Browns will have an excellent chance at making the playoffs. Scott, I don't know about your opinion. We haven't really talked about it. I get DTR as a developmental guy. This is not the time nor the position. Browns aren't in the position to develop it. They have a chance to not only make the playoffs, but if things go right for them and they win, they could end up hosting a game. And I think with Flacco, just because of the arm talent, and they have a puncher's chance against anybody if their defense can get right with Joe Flacco at quarterback.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And would the experience be valuable for DTR? Certainly. But he's got some experience. He started 3 games this year. If and when the Browns need to go to him next year or down the road or even later in this year, he's got that experience. So, every game would be helpful from a personal perspective, but it certainly does not supersede what you're trying to do with the team. And to me, Flacco, as soon as they signed Flacco to the practice squad, it felt like, okay, eventually he's going to get a chance. Now that he got the chance, because of the concussion to DTR in Denver, you're going to have to stick with him until he gets hurt or until the bottom falls out or they're out of the playoffs, out of the race, right? I think you just got to stick with Flacco. And I thought Stefanski made an interesting point, or a relevant point, is that defenses have to play Flacco honest because his arm talent. That should open up things in the run game. But we didn't see that all. It didn't work every time yesterday. The Browns had some difficulties running the ball. But if he's out there, defenses have to cover the width of the field and the length of the field. And that just was not the case when DTR was a quarterback.
Yeah, and you saw that on that drive before the one where we had the turnover. They were playing some 2 high safeties, and that's when they were able to run the ball. When they played the split safeties, and my guess is that was the decision. There's a read. Numbers in the box. If they play 2 safeties, we're running it. If it's 1, we're throwing it.
Yeah, right. That's how teams operate, right? If you get the 7 in the box or the 8, whatever that math is. And I don't know if, and I know Joe Flacco knows how to adjust to that, right? And to check into the run. And I don't know and I don't know this, but it felt like in Denver, DTR didn't run it in some of those light boxes. And maybe that's just made my observations wrong. But when Kevin Stefanski talked about some reads and some this and that from DTR, I thought maybe he'd been referring to that because I thought he had some chances to run it and they threw it. And I just don't think you have that issue with Flacco. He knows how to do that.
All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for the first time today.
Yeah, this is Bernard from New Philadelphia. This game you cannot blame on Kevin Stefanski. This falls solely on the defense. Give the Rams credit. Defense didn't know what they were doing today. And offensively, I thought we looked really, really good. One mistake, which cost us 7 points. But again, people were dropping balls all day long. We have to do better if we want to go to the playoffs. Otherwise, we don't have a shot. Thank you.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, take a look at this. This puts that defense in perspective. 401 yards allowed, second worst on the season. 20 first downs allowed, tied for the worst in the season. No sacks, worst in the season. So I guess the question that comes to mind, following up the Broncos game, have offenses figured out, something that is a problem for Jim Schwartz and this defense?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's funny. The caller says he doesn't blame Stefanski. Well, I mean, Stefanski is a head coach, right? The defense falls under his job responsibilities, right? And I get it, he's not calling the plays over there, but I just think that's kind of funny. Yeah, I think it's a combination of things, Dave. Number one, you don't have Denzel Ward, and that's huge. And you have to deal with injuries. You just do. And you have to win despite injuries. But that doesn't mean they're not a factor. And the Browns missed him. I don't know if Denzel Ward would have made a difference on that 70-yard touchdown to Nakua, but he might have. Because it was Hilasi over there in coverage. I don't know if it was man or zone or whatever, but maybe Ward makes a difference. I certainly think Ward makes a difference on the big 30-yard completion to DeMarcus Robinson on the third quarter touchdown drive by the Rams. Mike Ford misses a jam at the line of scrimmage, and the guy gets behind him. It looked like a cover 2 to me. He gets open in the zone, and it's a 30-yard completion. They score the next play, and it's 2nd and 20. You get an incompletion there. You're looking probably at a punt. So you miss Denzel Ward. He's played so well. Myles Garrett did not seem like himself yesterday, whether that was the shoulder or how the Rams handled him. So those are your two best defensive players. You're playing a really good quarterback, an experienced quarterback, a really good play caller in Sean McVay. You're going to give it up some points. You're on the road. They've struggled. The defense has struggled, especially compared with its home dominance on the road all season. And then I think you do have some, okay, this is how Jim Schwartz is going to play with these guys in the system. And to me, the biggest thing is they've given up too many explosive plays. And maybe that's what you give up. It's kind of the balance of you try to create a bunch of negative plays. But when you have the 70-yarder and the 30-yarder and they give up a 31-yard jet sweep, that skews the stats. It changes field position. It changes momentum, changes the game. And that, to me, that's the biggest area the Browns need to clean up. And, I think you can do that regardless of who's on the field. You just maybe have to tweak the aggression that Jim Schwartz is famous for.
Scott Patrick and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, talk a little bit more about Joe Flacco and Kevin Stefanski. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Ooh, holiday gold! The $20 scratch off?
It has 100 times multiplier. I could win $1 million.
Psych! I got merry and bright.
No fair.
It has a 200 times multiplier. I could win $2 million.
Game on the back.
Game on the back. Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram, as well as BrownsZone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
So, we have another loss by the Cleveland Browns. I don't blame Kevin Stefanski. The Browns' defense got absolutely gassed the last 2 weeks. That needs to be looked at. Thing is, though, at some point, you're going to have to be able to outscore the other team. And the head coach's job is to win games. I'm not saying everything is on Kevin Stefanski. What I am saying is, though, you're the coach. Eventually, you're paid to win. And if you can't find a way to win, then I think it's time to switch up head coaches. Kevin Stefanski is an offensive coordinator. He doesn't want to do the head coaching stuff. He's just not good at it. And so I don't think we're going to make it to the playoffs this year. But I'm still hopeful. Thanks.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, I keep hearing people saying you got to find a way to win. At some point, you're playing chess, and they took your king and queen. Well, not your king, you lose. They took your queen and a lot of your other pieces, and you got a lot of pawns. I mean, think about this. If you took the quarterback and the main weapon that the offense is built around, that would be Nick Chubb. So if you take Mahomes and Kelsey off of the Chiefs or Allen and Diggs off of the Bills, that's what Kevin Stefanski is dealing with this offense.
Yeah, I mean, Deshaun Watson's not Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, but
No,
he's supposed to be, right? They're paying him to be that guy. So I think that comparison holds water. To me, he's found a way to win. They're 7-5, right? He didn't find a way to win yesterday. He didn't find a way to win in Denver, but he has this year. And who knows how the season's going to play out, right? And this discussion could be different if it all goes in the tank and they miss the playoffs, and then we'll have a different discussion. But right now they're 7-5. They're in the last wild card spot, and he's done it with the worst quarterbacking in the NFL. And I don't think that changed after Flacco. I didn't look at the stats today, but it was a big gap. So I don't think Joe Flacco made up for that gap from a passer rating perspective. It was the worst quarterbacking in the league. And it's kind of a minor miracle to have that many wins. And it's not like they're doing it with turnovers. Like, they don't have this big turnover margin, which is one way to kind of skew the stats. They've given it away a bunch. Their quarterbacks are turning it over, and yet they're still winning. And Stefanski had a chance to win with his fourth quarterback this year, right? And I would expect that he gets that. And they become the first team in Browns history to win a game with four different quarterbacks. I don't know how you don't give Stefanski credit for that.
All right, Joe Flacco yesterday also talked about the throw on the interception that really kind of put things away in the fourth quarter.
I guess you can talk about that at some point, and I would assume you hope that you can always learn something in these situations. But I think right now it's kind of tough to sit there and reflect on positives of an outcome like that. It was one of those things it was one of those games that you just had to stay patient and wait for it to come to you, and just wasn't able to do that quite enough.
When you took that shot, the interception, was that come out of the huddle thinking you were going to take a shot?
You know what? They just kind of matched everybody up, and I was in the pocket a long time, and it ultimately was just a bad decision. I was late throwing that pass. Really wanted to get said, but like I said, they kind of just matched everything up, and I had time in the pocket, but lost track of the safety there.
Did the ball come out of your hand like you wanted to on that one?
It wasn't bad. I was trying to back shoulder him a little bit, like Elijah. I thought I had more space out there, but like I said, I mean, when you're in the pocket that long and you're kind of staring that way the whole time, you got to be aware that the safety's floating around back there and going to be able to make a play like that.
Other options?
Yeah, throw the ball away, maybe run for 5 yards. That's what I would say.
No other pass options.
I mean, I guess you probably could have tried to stuff it in his head, but I went to my check down after that, and like I said, they just kind of matched everything.
And again, retrospective of a veteran, he was saying he shouldn't have done. What he said is, I shouldn't have made that throw.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, he said Tillman is running like a 15-yard out, right? Kind of the intermediate. They got the three levels. It looks like he's covered to Flacco, so he checks it down. It looks down to Jerome Ford, who got was the fake handoff to play action. He's in the flat. Looks like he's covered. And then you go deep. And, I think it's hard to go deep late. It's hard to go deep over the middle late. And, I don't know if I'm guessing Elijah Moore is coming all the way from the other side. It's just hard. He said he's trying to back shoulder him. Maybe he needs to throw it out toward the sideline more. Or just put more under it, and then if Moore doesn't get there, he doesn't get there, it's incompletion. But he's been so patient all game, and you could feel it. You could see him just throwing the ball away. Whether or not he was pressured, it was okay, boom, boom, I'm getting rid of it. And on that one, it got to him. Whether it was the confidence in his arm, the desire to take shots. I think quarterbacks like to do that, right? You like to take a chance every once in a while. But it came back and bit him, and it bit him at a really bad moment.
So the Browns have now lost 2 in a row. Kevin Stefanski has only lost 3 games in a row on 2 occasions in his 4 years as head coach of the Browns. Why do you think that is? I mean, that's pretty impressive. Why do you think that is, Scott?
It is. I think it is because of that even keel personality he has, right? And the 1-0, and you don't get too high, don't get too low. I really do think that is beneficial when you're in a little bit of a tailspin, can't recall it. Things are going the wrong way. If you're a player and you look at your coach and he has the same demeanor, whether you just won, whether you've lost 2 in a row, whatever the situation is, I really do think that helps, as opposed to you got a screamer and he's, yelling at you and you can tell that it's the losing is getting to him. That's bad. And Stefanski never gives that up, right? He just doesn't. It doesn't get to him. I'm sure inside it does. Maybe he yells at his coaches. I don't know. But I think the players respect that he's the same guy, win or lose. And I do think that is the number one reason. Plus, they're a good coach and they come up with good schemes. And, it's a league where you win some, lose some. But I think it's his demeanor.
Yeah, the very thing that some fans get aggravated about, I think, is one of the reasons the players respond to him. This is kind of interesting. So according to Diana Rossini of The Athletic, multiple league sources indicate that Kevin Stefanski here to stay. Higher-ups, the Browns organization, have been thrilled with his leadership this season. That, again, according to Diana Rossini of The Athletic. And Scott, that doesn't surprise me one bit. I could completely understand and tend to agree with that line of thinking.
Yeah, I think I wrote 3 or 4 games ago that he should get an extension. Now, I wouldn't give it to him now. I wouldn't have given it to him then, just because you want to see the season play out. And you don't want to, give him an extension and then the bottom falls out and they miss the playoffs and then are you regretting it? But if this season stays on the rails and if they get to the playoffs, I have no doubt in my mind that he will get an extension, and he should get an extension. If they miss the playoffs at 9-8, I think he gets the extension, right? Because he's got another year. He's got the year in 2024, but I think you give it to him anyway because of everything he's gone through. I think you want that stability. You can pick apart certain things that he does, and you can certainly pick it and question certain play calls. But he's been the best. He's won the most games by far since '99, right? They're in position to go to the playoffs for the second time in 4 years. They've been to one playoff before Stefanski since 1994, right? Like, he's doing things that his predecessors did not do, and I think that should be rewarded. And I do think he has the mentality. I have no doubt that he has the intelligence to win in this league.
The other thing is you can kind of see the growth. He has a defense and he has a field goal kicker that, and I know Dustin Hopkins missed an extra point that was critical yesterday, but he's taking points when they are there now, as opposed to going for it all the time on 4th down. So there are tweaks to the way he's coaching as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Dave. I think, to me, that speaks more to adaptability than I was wrong, right? Like, I think he knows the situation he's in, right? Got a good kicker, got a good defense. We're struggling at quarterback, so maybe we don't try to score 30, right? Maybe you have to play that tight games. And I think he's good at that. Like, that's one thing I think since 2020 he's been good at, is identifying how that game needs to be won and what level of aggression he has to have. I don't think he's always been perfect with that, but yesterday he talked about, I knew we were going to need to score points, right? You're playing Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay, and they got those receivers over there. So I think he's good at that. Like, I talk about picking apart certain things with Stefanski. I think if you go big picture, there's so much to like. And it's the fact that he's not afraid to hire strong personalities on his coaching staff. We saw it when Bill Callahan was his first hire or second hire. He's a big personality, right? He's been a former head coach. Didn't mind hiring him. And then this year goes and gets Jim Schwartz and Bubba Ventrone. Like, those are 2 big-time hires, but guys that want to be, or were head coaches or want to be head coaches. And that does not, threaten Stefanski's, manhood or security. He's not insecure about those things. So, on a big picture level, I think he's got everything you're looking for in a head coach. Now it needs to, show up in wins, and it needs to show up in the right moves at the right times. But I think if you're the Haslams and Paul DePodesta and Andrew Berry, you look at it and go, man, this guy's got what we need.
Yeah, and I would agree with you about adaptability. I think that's another sign of a good coach. He understands what is needed to win games and can switch it up. It isn't like, well, this is the Browns way. This is the only way we win. Sometimes you got to do things a little differently, and I think he's shown this year that he can do that. Scott Petrick and I going to step aside, take another timeout. We'll continue talking Browns, Sports for CLE. We'll be right back.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrick, Browns beat reporter from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, as well as BrownZone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. Howard from Marin County. Just a couple things. The Joe Flacco fairy tale almost came true, but it didn't. I think the offense needs to be rebuilt. We really don't have anything in regards to playmakers. The defense has deteriorated. I know Miles is hurt and Denzel Ward is missing, but there's so many plays against it. Question, are we seeing echoes of the last season of Mike Pettin? Do the Browns have more injuries than other teams? Is that because they have older skill players? What about the drafts? I guess the drafts haven't been that good to get young players, and I really don't see the Browns making the playoff. Great show. Thanks a lot. Take care, Dave. Bye.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, the Browns might not have more injuries, but if you look at the injuries that they have, Watson, Chubb, both starting tackles, Denzel Ward, when you look at the percentage of their salary cap that is injured, it's pretty darn high.
It is. And I know there's a lot of data, and I think it's probably too early to tell this year where they rank. Just a number standpoint, a volume standpoint. But injuries feel cyclical to me, and sometimes you're bit by them as a team, and sometimes you're not. Sometimes you get hit by them early, and then everybody's okay at the end of the season, right? Like, it's just, there's a lot, to me, there's a lot of randomness to injuries. The Browns spend as much money as anybody on sports science, and they're trying to cut back on the soft tissue injuries, and it feels like they've done a pretty good job at that. I don't know if you can, I don't know how you avoid your quarterback breaking a shoulder, right?
Yep.
Nick Chubb's legs in the ground, he gets hit in the side of the knee. You're going to tear something, right? That's what happens. So, I don't think that's the Browns' issue. I think you can be unlucky sometimes. Now, when it comes to, will they get to the playoffs? I still think they will. I think I feel less good about it than I did 2 weeks ago before they lost 2 in a row and the injuries are starting to pile up. You can make an argument about skill position guys, right? Like, without Amari Cooper, that receiver core doesn't look nearly as good. And you traded away DPJ, and we talked about depth at receiver plenty of times. So that's a legitimate discussion. What you need is the guy you traded for, Elijah Moore, the guy you signed to a big money extension, David Njoku. You need those guys to step up their games and be reliable targets for Joe Flacco for this thing to stay on the rails.
Yeah, without question. And that's not out of the realm to expect. You should expect that those guys should be playing at that level. Joe Flacco was asked yesterday, does he think this team can make a playoff run?
I do. I think you guys have watched these guys all year. They're a resilient group and got a lot of talent. It's one of the more talented teams I've been on in a while, and you can tell that right away. So it's not easy when you take these long road trips and you come up empty-handed, but and right now we're not going to probably be able to reflect too much, but hopefully when we get back in there during the week, we can go out and have more good practices and eventually put this thing behind us.
I heard the Browns had a pretty good running game, but it was not up to its standard today. Why was that?
You know what? I really expected us to have some space out there and be able to do some things. I think late in the game there on the second to last real drive where we ended up scoring, I do think you saw us load it up a little bit and started to get some seams and looked like we were going to wear them down a little bit. It's just a shame that we didn't put ourselves in position to kind of do that the next drive. I think if we just get that started with either a 3-yard rush by me or a throwaway, and then you kind of give ourselves more chances to complete a pass and do more of that, I think it's one of those games that even though it wasn't going early on, you would have seen it kind of pop in the last few minutes of the game there and helped us out. So,
and Scott, I think a lot of what it was is the Rams kind of said, all right, let's see if he still has the arm strength. And then they said, oh, he still has the arm strength.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. You have a quarterback who hasn't played in 11 months, new to the team. Let's see if he can beat us. And he started to beat them. The Rams adjusted. And, the Rams also made a couple of behind the line of scrimmage plays against the run early that I think if you're Kevin Stefanski calling plays, and all of a sudden it's a -5, then you got to go, okay, we got to be careful about how we run it here. We're having some success throwing the ball. So I think all those things tie in, but I think the number one was, you're right. They needed to see Joe Flacco prove that he could throw it. And once he did, they adjusted. And I think that will continue to be the case throughout the rest of the season. As long as Flacco's throwing it, that's going to give this running game more space.
Yeah, I completely understand. I would have done that if I was the Rams. I would expect the Browns to do that if they were going against Joe Flacco, without question. That's the smart thing to do. All right, before we go to break, this is from Jake Trotter from ESPN, and it is Browns playoff odds by seed according to ESPN's Football Power Index. So less than 1% chance of being the 1 seed, 1.5% of the 2, 2.2 of the 3, over 2.5 is the 4. Then 5th seed, 24%, 6th seed, 18%. 7th seed, 15%. Browns still with a 64.6% chance to make the playoffs. And Scott, the Jaguars game could swing that whole thing. If they find a way to beat the Jaguars at home, which I don't think is out of the realm of possibility, that makes them more likely to climb up the seeding as well.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about that is that the 5th was the highest percentage. Because right now they're 7th. And, so that means they got to jump a little bit. It means they think they'll finish higher than all the other wild cards, right? Because there's four division winners. So it means they finish higher than the Texans, higher than the Colts, higher than the Bills. I'm probably missing some, or higher than the Chargers, whoever's coming out of the West. After the Chiefs, the Broncos already finished higher than the Broncos, so higher than the Steelers. So that's interesting, right? Because the Browns have lost 2 in a row, but there's a feel out there, and it's about schedule. So much of this is about the schedule. After Jacksonville, which is at home, the Browns get Chicago at home, which should, quote unquote, should be a win. Then it's a tough game in Houston, but then it's back for the Jets. Then it's on the road against a Cincinnati team without Joe Burrow, right? So there are winnable games out there. I think the schedule is still favorable.
Scott Patrick and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Look a little bit more in depth at the Jacksonville game coming up Sunday for the Browns here at Cleveland Browns Stadium. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter from the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram, as well as BrownsZone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Dave, this is Taylor. Again, I've been supportive of Stefanski, but the man has completely abandoned running the ball, and it's become nothing but a side dish to passing. Just a few weeks ago, we ranked 3rd in the NFL with our rushing attack. I don't want to hear the excuse about the box being stacked, because having Joe Flacco throw the ball nearly 45 times shows no balance at all. And the game wasn't out of reach. We were down by 1 point with like 9 minutes to go in the game. How can we keep the defense honest or capitalize on our rushing attack with 3 solid running backs? And I think that Ford and Strong should get more carries than Hunt. He's just not as quick or as fast as he used to be. Thanks for taking my call.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. All right, Scott, before we answer this, I want you to look at this, because this is one of the reasons why. Browns now are averaging 3.6 yards per run on first down first down rushing plays. 30th. Only 32 teams in the league. 30th in the NFL. Previous rates, 2022, 4.6 yards first down. That was 10th. 2021, 4.4. That was 9th. 2020, 5.4. That was first. 2019, 4.9. That was fourth. So I guess the answer to the caller's question is, why aren't they running the ball? Because by running the ball on first down, they're getting behind the chains with inexperienced quarterbacks, which is a recipe to turn the ball over, which is why they lead. Well, they have as many turnovers as anybody in the NFL, in a nutshell.
Yeah. Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth, Dave. You can't play behind the chains with suspect quarterback play. And, so as much as people say, hey, just hand the ball off, take the pressure off DTR when he was quarterbacking. Well, if Jerome Ford gets stuffed for 1 or 2 yards, all of a sudden it's 2nd and 8, 2nd and 9, and all the pressure is on DTR. How you take it off DTR is give him throws when the defense is worried about the run, which is 1st and 10, 2nd and short, right? 2nd and intermediate, when the defense has to pay attention to both run and pass. And that's why Stefanski calls the games the way he calls them. Now, if you're running for 5 yards a pop on first down, that's perfect. But if you're not, then it puts you in tough situations the rest of that series. And I really do think it is as simple as that. I don't think Stefanski hates to run the ball. I know he doesn't. It just hasn't been as easy. No, obviously, without Nick Chubb. You had injury to Jack Conklin, who might be your best run blocker. Jed Wills is out now, which I would think hurts the run game as well. And, the guy says doesn't want to hear about stacked boxes. That's a reality. It's tougher to run in stacked boxes when defenses don't fear your quarterback.
Yeah, and Nick Chubb erased the stack boxes. He was really good running. Drumford, and he's been just fine. He's not Nick Chubb. Relative to Kareem Hunt, they use him near goal lines because he's a guy that can get yards when there are people in the middle of it. He's probably the toughest inside runner they have, which is why they keep him in for goal lines mostly.
Yeah, there's no doubt. He's a dirty runner, right? It's the short yardage. He's a guy, goal line short yardage. But, he doesn't have the same explosion that Jerome Ford does, right? And you'd like Ford to be the guy because he can, he's strong enough. He can stick his nose in the middle, but he can also bounce outside. He can make a guy miss and go. And Hunt doesn't have that anymore. Strong's got a little bit of that. He's not as strong as Jerome Ford. So they're kind of figuring out a way to use these 3 backs. But it's just a grind. It's going to be a grind without Nick Chubb and without some of your pieces up front.
All right, so Jacksonville actually plays Monday night tonight against Bengals. They've won 7 of their last 8. The thing that's really weird, Jaguars are 5-0 on the road and 3-3 at home, which makes no sense at all. When you look at this, what do the Browns need to do to get a win? A win against them, it's almost one of those that counts 2 because that could be somebody you end up tied with at the end of the year.
Yeah, you know what? I've not seen a ton of them. I'm looking forward to watching tonight, assuming I can stay awake after the red eye. It starts with Trevor Lawrence, right? You talk about, he doesn't have the experience of a Russell Wilson or a Matthew Stafford, so I'm not comparing him that way. But he's a guy that has some movement skills, a guy that has a good arm, right? Number 1 pick in the draft, former number 1 pick in the draft. And he's got a good coach, right? Doug Peterson's a Super Bowl winning coach, just like Sean McVay, just like Sean Payton the last 2 weeks. So I think that's what you have to worry about with the Browns. Number 1 is figuring out a way to slow down that offense. Now, Browns have been great defensively at home, right? Like unbelievable, dominant. They need another one of those performances. It'll probably be more difficult against Jacksonville. I don't know what the weather's going to be like. But getting back at home, I think there'll be an energy boost. You have Jacksonville on a short week, right? You hope all those intangibles, not losing 3 in a row many times under Kevin Stefanski. You kind of hope all those things add up to, hey, maybe the Browns get a break this week. Maybe the ball bounces their way and not steal one, but they can get one that they need to, even though they're going to be an underdog at home.
The other guy that comes to mind, because they've had trouble with the run, and Etienne has been affected. Now he's a little banged up. He's going to play. He's got a rib issue, but Etienne is another one that if you're the Browns, you got to be concerned with.
Yeah, and it's kind of that, Trevor Lawrence isn't maybe the runner that Russell Wilson is, but I think he's got some of that ability. I'm sure they run some RPOs, right? Doug Peterson's system. Those things have given the Browns some issues. That zone read, I don't know how much zone read Lawrence runs. But if you got that back that's got some explosion, got the quarterback that can do a few things, that's where the Browns have struggled. So it'll be a matchup that they got to worry about for sure.
Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle, Telegram, brownzone.com. As always, great stuff. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much, Scott.
Thanks, Dave.
Again, check him out, Scott Petrak, brownzone.com on the web. You can also check him out in the Elyria Chronicle, Telegram. Always really good Brown stuff. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Tyler Johnson straight ahead. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Holiday gold! The $20 scratch-off?
It has 100 times multiplier. I could win $1 million.
Psych! I got merry and bright. No fair. It has a 200 times multiplier. I could win $2 million.
Game on the back.
Game on the back. Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve. Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. Appreciate you taking my call. I'm feeling pretty encouraged, even though we did lose, because they had to play them in the Mile High Stadium the week before, and then this game with Miles' shoulder, no Denzel Ward. I love the team because they stick together. It's like they had that camaraderie, so I'm not that disappointed. Of course, I wanted to win, but they did show up. Appreciate you taking my call again.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Tyler Johnson, Faithful Dogs Podcast, as well as Network 216. Tyler, both those games were a little tougher than you thought they would be, being the Broncos and the Rams, because Broncos were playing pretty well. Russell Wilson got it together, and two veteran quarterbacks know how to play the game.
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. I mean, you talk about the Broncos, that was tough. Anytime you're going to Denver, that's always going to be a tough game. And the Browns, just in years past, and it's continued again this year, just struggle anytime they have to go to the West Coast. It just seems to be very difficult for them to win out West. But Matthew Stafford had a really good game yesterday. He's battling through a thumb injury, but you wouldn't know that by the way he played. And then Sean McVay also, though, have to give him credit for using the Browns' aggression on defense completely against them. I mean, he had a great day calling plays for the Rams, and really Jim Schwartz, the thing that's getting a little bit worrisome about this defense is on the road. They continue to struggle in games on the road. Myles Garrett, clearly you can tell he's hurt, he was very ineffective yesterday. And it wasn't really anything the Rams were doing to block him. He just didn't have a good day yesterday. It's just continuing on the road. This team's got to find a way as they go back home against Jacksonville to really right the ship, because this is the type of season that can get away from you quickly. There were some really positive things, especially with Joe Flacco, that was very encouraging, and the offense. But to me, the biggest worry right now is the defense, because if the defense isn't able to keep you in games, this team isn't – asking Joe Flacco to score you 28, 30 points a game, I just don't think that's feasible moving forward. So this defense is going to have to really find their groove as we get to the back half of the season, or else the Browns might not have the opportunity to make the playoffs. But like the caller said, it is encouraging seeing how close-knit this group is together. And I think that just shows everything they've been through this year. They just continue to battle no matter who goes down. It's next man up, and they just continue to fight, which is very encouraging to see.
So Joe Flacco was asked after the game about the receiving core, and would he like another chance to get a start here?
I think anytime you get a little taste of playing football, you want to keep that going for as long as possible.
It seemed like you revived Elijah. This was his best game. Did you feel that was clicking for you?
Hey, obviously with Amari going out, guys need to step up. And, I'm just trying to run the offense the way that it needs to be ran. And if those guys are in those situations and are getting open, then they should get the ball. So, listen, Elijah has a lot of talent, and especially when he can kind of get involved early, he shows, a lot of juice throughout the game.
How much did you guys miss Amari when he had to leave?
Well, listen, I think it's tough to put your finger on exactly how much, but listen, he's definitely a receiver that kind of pops off the screen at you. I've been at home watching all year, and when the Browns games come on, yeah, you definitely notice him. So, like I said, it's tough to kind of measure that in a game like this, but he is a really good player.
And Tyler, keep in mind he went out and the offense still somewhat effective.
Yeah, and I think that's what was really encouraging. And like I said yesterday, I was not surprised by the game that Elijah Moore had, because they played together in New York, and the Jets had a lot of quarterback issues last year. But even when Joe Flacco came to the lineup for them, that's when Elijah Moore played his best. And his best game as a Brown is with Joe Flacco in the lineup. He had 12 targets yesterday, 83 yards, 4 catches. He was the Browns' leading receiver statistically yesterday, which was encouraging to see. I will say, though, Dave, the one thing that if Amari Cooper can't play this week, you're probably going to call up Austin Watkins from the practice squad. But, you're just dangerously thin at wide receiver. And just continue. Kevin Stefanski, what he's done all year and did really well on Sunday, it's just making throws easy for Flacco. There were plenty of throws that Joe Flacco made that Kevin Stefanski just dialed up, really easy throws. And I think that's what you want to see. And like Joe Flacco said, once you get a taste of starting, you want to do it again. There's no reason for me, Dave, why Joe Flacco shouldn't start the rest of the year. I know there were some positives that we saw from DTR. He brings a mobility factor. But what Joe Flacco brings to this team, he brings a calmness and a demeanor about him with that Super Bowl winning experience that he has, that no matter what the situation, he can go out there and deliver for you. This guy has been with the Browns not even 2 full weeks, and up until the fourth quarter, had an opportunity to win this game for the Browns on the road with not being around these guys very much. I think Joe Flacco needs to start for the Browns moving forward, and even just having his presence in this offense is really key for them moving forward. So there's no reason he needs to start for the rest of the season. I like DTR. There's definitely some flashes there, but I think also Kevin Stefanski not naming a starter, make Jacksonville prepare it for DTR and Joe Flacco, because that's 2 different play styles that you do have to prepare for as a defensive coordinator.
I think DTR is a developmental guy that you like what you see, you want to see more of it. Right now, you're fighting to not only get into the playoffs, but potentially there's still very much a possibility that they can host some playoff games. If they can defeat Jaguars and Texans, they get right back in the thought process of being one of those top seeds that gets a home playoff game. This is from Browns Wire. Good, bad, and ugly from Week 13 for the Browns. The good, Browns can win games with Joe Flacco at quarterback. The bad, the run game can't find any semblance of down-to-down success. And the ugly, Jim Schwartz has to make adjustments to the over-aggressive defensive style. Yeah, I think the run game, with Joe Flacco's ability to stretch the field, and I think you saw that a little bit, we were just talking about it last segment with Scott, his ability to throw the ball downfield made them take people out of the box. That's what you want to run the football. You don't want 8 people in the box.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of fans out there. What's funny is we've seen it every year, more so when Nick Chubb has been on the field, but they just want the Browns to run it 30, 40 times a game. And you're just not in a position right now where you can even run it 30 times a game because you can't average more than 3 yards a carry. And that's a huge problem right now for this offense. And like you said, I think Joe Flacco, if he is the starter moving forward, he's going to open up this run game more, because if you throw on first down, get 5 or 6 yards, that's going to help. And so I think Joe Flacco is the key to opening up the run game as we move forward. Kareem Hunt was the most successful for the Browns. He had 4 yards per carry. But outside of that, you need to open up the run game, and the best way to do that is through the pass, because if you can't do it through the pass, they're just going to stack the line of scrimmage. And then Jim Schwartz. I love Jim Schwartz. He's done a great job all year. But one thing now that he has not seemed to adjust when they're on the road, he is not adjusting his aggression that he is playing onto the field. And these offensive coordinators, Sean McVay did a really good job of it on Sunday. Sean Payton did it too in Denver. He's using that against him. And right now, that's a huge problem. They have to get that fixed for the second half of the season, because let's say the Browns make the playoffs. More than likely, they are going to have to go on the road and try and win on the road. And if you're playing the same way you are now with this defense, you're not going to be very successful. And that's the biggest problem. They need to dial it back a little bit, especially with Myles Garrett's health now being an issue. Denzel Ward's still out. We don't know when he's coming back. Got to dial it back a little bit, because without Denzel Ward, without Myles Garrett being, it seems like, close to 100%, this is not the same defense. They need to take a step back, get back to the basics, keep plays in front of them, because right now they're getting gashed on the ground. They're getting gashed on basic pass plays. They just got to take a step back here, and hopefully with Jacksonville coming to town, which one of the better teams in the AFC, they get back to doing that a little bit.
Tyler Johnson and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Talk a little bit more about the upcoming Jaguars game. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Holiday gold! The $20 scratch-off?
It has 100 times multiplier. I could win $1 million.
Psych! I got merry and bright.
No fair.
It has a 200 times multiplier. I could win $2 million.
Game on the back.
Game on the back. Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game.
We continue talking Browns on Sports for CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey guys, Bob from Chillicothe here. Man, rough 2 weeks. I really thought this team was learning how to win, and it's like they're back to reality. They just got to learn how to play tough, and every down matters. That's why they bring in the vets to try to show these kids that every play, every second, you got to do film study. You got to know what's going to happen before it happens on the field. I mean, I don't want to hear about the injuries. Barry's done a good job of getting replacements and having backups ready to play that have been able to contribute. I mean, look at Joe Flacco. It was like one of our best quarterback performances of the year. And on that note, I think it's time to play the Siaki Ika kid. I mean, our defensive interior needs some kind of a spark. Here the last few games, we haven't been getting that push. No real production lately. Bring the kid in. Let's see what we got. Go Browns. Woof, woof.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Tyler, you can say every team has injuries, but again, I'm going to sound like a broken record. Quarterback, running back, 2 tackles. Now, your shutdown corner also hasn't played, and I think they really missed Denzel Ward without question. Relative to Siaki Ika, if they thought he would make a difference, he'd have been starting. I mean, he's a developmental guy that I'm sure Jim Schwartz liked him, and if he was able to contribute, he'd be in there.
Oh, absolutely. And going back to the injuries, I know people say that we can't use that as an excuse. I get it. A lot of NFL teams are dealing with injuries right now. We're not the only ones. Also, I don't believe, and I could be incorrect on this, that no NFL team has gone through 4 starting quarterbacks this year. So you're already down there. You mentioned the tackles. We're seeing really the impact of losing Denzel Ward this year. That has been massive for this defense. And then you talk about Siaki Ika. I'm excited about Siaki Ika because I believe Jim Schwartz really does like him. But again, this is the issue with Siaki Ika. Who are you making inactive to play him? Because then you're gonna play 5 defensive tackles on Sunday? That wouldn't really make a lot of sense because Jim Schwartz likes to use Zadarius Smith inside, Myles Garrett inside. So that just wouldn't make a lot of sense there. Are you taking Jordan Elliott off the field? Probably not, because as much as we were concerned with him going into the year, he's actually played pretty well this year. His best year as a Brown. And then Maurice Hurst. You're not making Maurice Hurst inactive. He's been fantastic this year. So, and there's no one else that you can take out. You already have Isaiah McGuire, who's inactive, and he's another rookie. So, it is what it is. I know some would say make Alex Wright inactive, but Alex Wright has shown flashes this year, especially being able to play inside out. Nothing against Siaki Ika, but if you're not having to rush him in right now, that's actually a good thing. It means they like the guys they have, and they're confident in them. We'll see Siaki Ika next year.
Yeah, and that's fine. The other thing relative to the injuries, and we've talked about it a little bit, the Browns have by far the most salary cap that is injured. It's not even close. They've done the numbers on it, and the Browns lead the league in that category that you do not want to lead the league in. All right, so the Jaguars coming here. You've got Etienne, you got Lawrence, you got Ridley. They play tonight. They're one of the AFC teams that have only 3 losses. Browns now have 5. When you look at them, what do you think the key to, stopping them, getting a win against them will be?
I think what we need to see, Dave, is we need to see this defense play at home the way they have all year. I mean, this defense at home is one of the greatest defenses we've ever seen, remarkably, compared to on the road. And they need a very good performance against this offense. I mean, Jacksonville would become – now, we don't know what's going to happen tonight against Cincinnati. We're going to assume Jacksonville's going to win that game. So if they do, you're talking they've won 8 of their last 9 games. I mean, they are just firing on all cylinders right now. You need this defense to be able to disrupt Trevor Lawrence and make things difficult for him in the passing game, because when he has time to throw, he's fantastic. He also can get outside the pocket a little bit. One thing that people do not talk about enough with Trevor Lawrence, and it's a very underrated part of his game, is he is pretty mobile for a quarterback. Now, I know he's been battling kind of like a knee sprain all year. He seems to be a lot healthier, but when he adds that dimension of his game to this offense, they become very, very difficult to beat. Travis Etienne is beat up too, which does play a little bit in the Browns' favor. And really, Travis Etienne, I mean, he's got pretty decent numbers, but he's not even rushing for 4 yards to carry this year. It's been mainly on Trevor Lawrence's arm, and he's really picked it up the last couple weeks. Then on the offensive side of the ball, I mean, Jacksonville, they're pretty healthy coming into this year. I mean, when you look at their team, they're going to be coming in, like I said, they're one of the AFC's best teams. You just need Joe Flacco to come out, make some easy throws, open up the run game. Because, again, we talked about it earlier, though. If you cannot run the ball, it's going to be very difficult for this team to win, because you're asking Joe Flacco to throw it 40 to 50 times in order to win you a football game. And I'm not saying he can't do that. I'm just saying that's not what is a good recipe for the Browns to win this football game. They need to keep this a low-scoring game. You don't want to get into a shootout with Jacksonville. I think the Browns can win this game. I think they can bounce back and win this game, especially at home. But again, this defense is going to be the key. If this defense can bounce back, the Browns have a really good shot at winning on Sunday.
Tyler Johnson, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Tyler.
My pleasure, Dave. Thank you.
Tyler Johnson, make sure you check him out. Faithful Dogs podcast, as well as Network 216. Always good Brown stuff. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.